I want to say thank you guys for being here. I've really been excited about this panel in particular. 2020, brand new decade. I wrote an article in the magazine how the vacation rental industry is like the Wild West. And I really believe that the 2020s is a decade that we see some law and order, some stabilization, getting rid of some of these gunslingers and outlaws, and a little bit more stability in the space by the end of the decade. But I really wanted to get a chance to talk to some guys who actually know. And I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves because I'm still shaky over my little power outage. So I'm going to start with Lino, who is no longer with Wyndham. And I think most of you know him from Wyndham. When Vacasa purchased the company, Lino resigned. I'm sure that had nothing to do with it on any level. But anyway, so tell us about where you are now.
Yeah, so I'm the president of a company called Be Home 24/7. We integrate with a large number of property management systems. We've got a lot of customers in the room here. One of our newest, Scott, with Southern Resorts. Thank you for your business. We appreciate the new partnership and looking forward to helping you beat the pants off of everybody else now. So thank you for that. But yeah, spent 24 years in the industry as an operator. Started with the Resort Quest initial IPO, Abbott Resorts, all the way through Wyndham, and really the Wyndham Vacasa transaction afforded me the opportunity to really think about what did I want to do next when I grow up. And really what I came to the realization is that what I am most passionate about is helping other people succeed. And so this platform, this company, allows me to take the tools that we've built over the years. We were their largest client. My region in particular helped to develop a lot of these modules that we just sold to Scott. Again, thank you, sir. And so that's where my energy and passion come from now. So we're very, very excited about this next chapter.
I'm going to come back to you on that. Brian.
I'm sure you are.
Brian, that's the first time we've gotten to do a panel together, so I appreciate you being here. Thank you.
I appreciate it. So my name's Brian Moffitt. I'm with Royal Destinations. Been in and around the vacation rental business and related industries for about 15 years now. Everything from construction development on through a little short stint in the hotel world. But we operate about 130 units or so, mostly high-end homes, almost exclusively out on 30A. So for perspective, when I'm talking about what I see and feel, what's transpired over the last few years and what's coming down the pike, it's from that perspective. A little bit smaller company and a little bit more of a boutique style. So I know these guys are much larger operations and kind of may see it a little bit different way, but yeah, hopefully I'll give you guys a little bit different perspective as well.
Am I next?
Yes.
Yes, awesome.
I'm sorry,
Scott's my
Mike
best friend too, so just in case anybody's
Scott's
curious.
my best friend too.
I know. I'm hoping to sell him something, but yeah, exactly. I'm hoping to sell you something. It just hasn't happened yet. No, I'm Micah. I'm the founder of Real Joy Vacations. We have, give or take, 600 units here in Destin through Panama City and 200 down in St. Pete Beach. Not quite large. Everything's relative, I guess. I'm large compared to most, but I still consider us a small company trying to figure it out. And my perspective comes, I started in 2009, so kind of as the real estate market was falling apart, and over the last 10 years, we've seen this shift, and I really feel like I've gotten to define my business based on what's changing as it goes, instead of having to readjust, and I like to say change the wheels on the car while it's moving. We kind of get to build as we go, and it's a neat perspective. So from where I see the industry going, I think we're all just getting started. Whether you're at 20 units or 1,000 units, we're all small right now. I mean, there's so much room. So I feel like I'm kind of in the middle of these guys. The boutique shop is not us. We're a little ahead of that necessarily, but we're also not Resort Collections or Resort Quest. So fit right in the middle of that. Looking forward to sharing some thoughts.
Me next. All right. My name's Paul Wolford, and I don't know Scott. But I look forward to it because obviously you're an important person to know. I oversee business development for a company called Resort Collection over in Panama City Beach. We're about 1,000 units. And I also have a support role for a company on 30A called 30A Escapes, a growing company, great company. So my perspective is about 15 years in the VR space and 15-year hotel guy. So I question myself a lot as to why I left the hotel business. this is a different world we're in, obviously. And did you do that, Scott? So
It could go
it's
wrong.
a little bit
It's gonna go
different.
wrong.
So that's my perspective, coming from a little bit Panama City Beach, a little bit 30A, 30 years in the business on the hotel side and the VR space. I've known these guys for a while. I've known Lino a long time and competed with Lino, and I can honestly say I'm glad to see him go. Because he's a very worthwhile competitor and a very good guy and ran a great show.
I think it's cute that you called it a competition.
No.
Wait, I want to see which side he's talking about here. He didn't clarify.
You know, the business is, he's been gone 2 months and he's already dated himself and he's not in the business anymore, right? So I don't even know why he's on stage, but we'll get onto that in a minute.
I'll tell you why he's on stage. So really quickly, you're also one of the founders and on the board of the On-Site Property Management Association. Looking at a
True.
conference coming up in May. Can you tell a little bit about that association? A lot of people don't know about it. Let's just cover it.
You know, we started the On-Site Property Management Association, better known as OPMA, going on 4 years ago, because we saw a need for the guys who are on site have different needs than the hotel guys, than different needs than the virtual guys, right? So we have front desks. We operate like a hotel. We function like a hotel. We have housekeeping departments and front offices and rental maintenance and all those things. So we saw a need to start such an association, had a lot of momentum quickly. We had to change gears lately with our association, but we're back on track. And Amy's going to work with us, and we're going to have a conference in May over in the Palm Coast area at Ocean Hammock.
And
So-
Steve Milo said we could have a party at his house.
All right, thanks, Steve.
We appreciate it. The 11 bedroom. We're all staying there too.
Perfect.
So looking at one of the reasons I wanted to put this panel together in particular is just looking at the whole competitive landscape right now. It was an interesting decade. Micah, you had a full decade in it now. So looking from 2010 to 2020 was pretty interesting in our industry. The competitive landscape has changed quite a bit. It went from a lot of traditional, much larger companies to now you've got one side, you've got this Vacasa, turnkey, iTrip, multi-destination player, or attempt at that. And then on the other side, you've got a lot of small companies like that have really jumped up. I mean, I think I was looking at our subscribership, we had over 150 new companies on the Gulf Coast in the last 3 years of managing under 50 properties. So I think starting, the first thing I want to talk about is Vacasa's purchase of Wyndham. So looking at the top end, what does that mean for the Gulf Coast in particular? I mean, I think we're looking at it I look at it on the national level, but on the Gulf Coast, Wyndham has been such an established large player from Alabama through Florida. So what is it really going to mean here for Vacasa to purchase that company?
It depends on how well they do with integration and transition. I'll tell you that to go from one culture of on-site, full-service, end-to-end quality control, where we own all the assets and the managed pieces and the relationships, and even growing our own talent with our own training programs, to go from that environment to something different is tricky. So I think the future of the business that I was blessed to have been involved with for so many years is up in the air. I think that there are a couple of things happening in the industry that aren't really new. Consolidation isn't new in the industry. Resort Quest back in the late 90s went from a couple of hundred units to 23,000 units in 38 destinations in just 3 years. So that was way back then. That's happening today. It's happening today.
And then back down to 9,000 units in the next 3 years.
Exactly right. Well, when we bought the company in 2007 from Gaylord Entertainment Group, we cut non-profitable businesses out. Because the mindset sometimes when you're acquiring and growing isn't, is this the right strategic fit for our business? It's how well do they show in this particular quarter or this particular period, and you hope you have synergies between all these destinations that can offset, challenges, when they occur. But there's I think as much opportunity that comes along with the consolidation around our industry than there is with just for the big guys. I think it's.
So Eric Breon said that he thought the acquisition was a guaranteed success because Wyndham is a publicly traded company. They expect Vacasa to be a publicly traded company in the near future, and that your homeowners at Wyndham were already used to being a part of a publicly traded environment. And so the service level, any kind of decline in the service level wouldn't impact a Wyndham in the same way that it might if they're like at a Kaiser when they bought that has a really high level of service, or when you bought that.
Yeah, I don't know that I necessarily agree with that, conceptually, because I think the three things that matter to an owner back in the 90s when we were rolling up versus what matters today is, revenue, relationships, and a well-maintained property. And to me, it's in different orders sometimes, depending on the type of owner that you're strategically going after. But those are the three things. And how well you execute on those three things are only as good as the people and the resources that you put locally to do them. I don't care where you put your base of business, but if you're not close to the homeowner and involved with the guest at every level of their journey, I don't know that it's a complete recipe for success long term.
One of the other things Eric said about it, and this was just about his acquisition model in general, is that there's a 10% to 15% attrition in most acquisitions that he picks up. Like you had 10,000, 9,000, 10,000 units at Wyndham. That would be 900, 1,350 moving out of that program to other programs nationwide. Do you think that holds, or do you think it's higher in this case?
I think it fluctuates based on the market and how you handle the transition. I mean, if you look at the average size of some of the acquisitions that Vacasa has undertaken, I mean, they're 30 units, 50 units, single operator units. That's a much different transition than a 9,000 unit transition with an established yield management team and training team and commercial laundries and all of the things that you can really just screw up versus keep level and add value to. So I think it really a lot depends on the next couple of months on how well that they transition. I think they've already done Alabama, and I'll yield to someone that's been part of that pain and suffering to see how well it's gone. But I think it's an early indicator of how the rest could go.
So Micah, in this market in particular, do you see it kind of as an opportunity to pick up units right now?
I do. So, when I had to compete with Lino, it was kind of like being the scrappy dog living off the crumbs that fell off the table, right? And I mean that, as respectfully to myself as I possibly can. But, it was work. Resort Quest was not perfect. No company's perfect. And we've picked up a lot of units over the last 10 years, a lot of them from Resort Quest. Just kind of, I think, based on size, not that they did anything wrong. But to answer your question directly, I'm like really hungry, and I see prime rib about to fall off the table. Vacasa, speaking to this audience here that is probably competing directly with Vacasa like I am, they have about 3 months to execute on a full transition across the entire Gulf Coast of thousands upon thousands of units. If they let this slip into August, they will be decimated by anybody trying to pick up units. That's my forecast. Just because if there's already this attitude of, a slight slip in service to an already massive company that's probably on the bleeding edge of service anyway, just by size. It's hard to service thousands upon thousands of owners correctly. So if there's already a forecast of a slight slip in service and an attitude of, I don't really think it'll matter, that is the wrong cultural perspective for people like us who have a couple hundred to several hundred units or 50 units, even better for you. It's going to be devastating to get to August, September, October when these owners are looking at their relationship, how the transition's gone, their future revenue, their snowbirds, all these things that we stay up at night trying to figure out so our owners don't leave. They're going to be completely oblivious to, in my opinion. And truly, I hate to say it, one of the things, I should probably say this before I bash Vacasa any further. One of my key hopes, I literally pray for Vacasa's success. Because if they are successful and they go public and they do this right, it means everything to our industry. If they go public and they do this wrong, it literally sets us back another 10 years. We literally go back 10 years because the market then looks at us and says, let's just stick with hotels. Vacation rentals are still the wild, wild west, and so we limit our access to capital through banks. We limit our growth potential. We limit the number of homeowners that will trust us. There's so many things that it's literally Vacasa's responsibility. So I don't sit up here saying, I'm going to go destroy their business. I'm just saying the facts are, and I hope they're listening, if they miss this next 3-month window and they don't get this done well by July, it's going to cost them. And we're ready. I think
their
we all
models are so different. I mean, Vacasa's model and Lino's model of Resort Quest is so different. I don't care if they're publicly traded or not. That's not the basis for staying. Those homeowners care about cash, care, and communication, right? The 3 C's. So it's going to be a tough transition, in my opinion, because they are run so different. I mean, our model is built in Panama City Beach like Resort Quest. It is laundry facilities and trucks and all these assets that we manage and support through employees, and a lot of them. And their model is just not that. So I agree. I think it's absolutely an opportunity for all of us to grow our own businesses as they try to make this transition happen.
Employees are in play too, right? I mean, this is, how many did you have on the Gulf Coast alone?
Over 1,200, and with another 400 or 500 in vendor relationships.
I mean, we've seen several, just at VRMIntel, people reach out when they want to find jobs. So it's like, I mean, there's some high-level, executive-level positions that have certainly been in play, and some have left, like yourself. But even like frontline reservations, housekeeping, maintenance, I mean, are you guys looking at recruiting some of these people too?
Absolutely. I mean, we got hit hard by the hurricane in Panama City Beach. Obviously, the further east you go, the more you got hit. And we lost a large portion of our labor force, and mostly because in Panama City, the apartment complexes were all devastated, right? So there goes your hourly labor. They move out. So we have had a very difficult time with labor. So trying to find and recruit their resources, and along with others, Sterling, they took over Sterling too. They bought Sterling, and people were in play again, and they wanted that stability. So absolutely, it's not an opportunity just to grow our programs, but to grow our employee base with good quality people.
Brian, in 30A, are you affected by this at all, or are you just kind of playing your big home game?
No, I was just about to say, I think one of the common denominators that we're all talking about with consolidation, especially for coming from the perspective of somebody that's not in the market to consolidate right now. We're not looking to buy, we're not looking to sell, and that's probably most of us in this room right now. But there's a tremendous opportunity, right? Every time, and as Lino said, consolidation has been going on as far back as we can remember, but I think there's been a recent wave of opportunities in the market because of consolidation. And I would kind of recommend what we do is every time we see it, we take a look at what we do best as operators, right? Whether that's caring for homes, homeowners, whatever it is that's on our list of how we identify ourselves as operators and the types of homeowners that we cater to. And that we go after those opportunities. Because of the consolidation that we've seen recently, we've had tremendous opportunities to grow, right? Whether it's staffing, whether it's homeowners, whether it's an infrastructure, but we love consolidation. I think it's one of the best things that can happen to good established operators.
So looking at this whole, like we're talking about the new companies that are coming up with these like niche models, and then you've got these larger companies. Which is a bigger threat to you? The new guy who's got 10 properties, or the large guy who's got 10,000?
I think size is secondary to kind of what we were just talking about. I think if an operator, regardless of size, does what you do for the homeowner that you serve, and they do it better than you, they're a threat, right? That's your competitor. Doesn't matter if they've got 10,000 units or 10. I think there's kind of this broad overgeneralization, right? That really big companies excel at marketing and really small companies excel at service. But I think the reality is it doesn't matter how big you are. Your competitor is somebody that serves the same homeowner that you do, and that they may or may not do that job better than you do. That's who you need to look out for.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. You say that the service side on the small companies, that's certainly something you hear quite a bit. A lot of times large companies get lazy. We're with marketing. We're Wyndham, or we're Vacasa, we're whoever. We don't need to hit all the bells and whistles and do all the things that historically we've done, print, postcard, whatever. And the reality is that every single market's different. Every single company's different. Your strategic plan around what you're going to go after, whether it be consumer or even additional units, it's a very highly, sort of personal scenario versus, some other shotgun approaches that are out there. So I think smaller companies present, as much, risk as any company, does. But to your point, I think it's an excellent one. If you're not loving your owner and your guest, somebody else will,
Yeah, and one thing we've done is, as we've grown so quickly, who I used to compete with is no longer in my brain. Who I compete with today, and then tomorrow is going to be different as well. And so it really posed a challenge to me and our executive team of, well, I think maybe we're actually just competing with ourselves, because I can't name a business that I've legitimately hurt picking up 700, 600 units. I mean, we've actually lost some too. So let's say 1,500 units have kind of moved around. I couldn't point around to people in this room and say, yeah, I've really hurt your business, which tells me that we're not actually directly competing. I think the best way to view this is not our small good or bad, or our large ones, our competitors, but to look at yourself and say, hey, is your review score going up? Is your quality getting better? Is your net promoter score going up? Are your employees happy? Are you making more money than last year? Are you losing money? If you're losing money, you're not even in the hunt, right? So stop losing money. And really looking at your business, and stop comparing to everyone, and do the best job you absolutely can for yourself, and you will just win. I mean, your point was great. Take care of your homeowners, take care of your staff, take care of the stuff you're supposed to do with. Who cares what Real Joy's doing, or what, honestly, what Vacasa does? Like, take care of your house, make sure your ship is going in the right direction, and you got wind in your sails. I still think, like, my 10-year, prediction, we're not going to compete with each other in this next decade.
So you're saying if you lose an owner, you didn't lose them to another company.
I lost
you
it because of
them
myself.
yourself.
Right, yeah. I never view it as Lino took it or Scott took it. I mean, we trade owners here or there. It's literally like, well, that was just a better house for them. And that's okay. That's just something either I couldn't serve or I didn't serve well. And every owner we lose and every owner we gain, we ask the question, why did we lose them? Why did we gain them? Not, man, Paul's such a jerk. He always takes my pride. No, he just does better in many, many ways in these buildings he's
kind of
in.
a jerk.
And I have to be okay with losing that and figure out my own stuff, right?
Well, and we face other threats too in our world. In the condo world, at one of our primary resorts, Edgewater, people, when it was developed, they bought that unit to live in it 20 years from now or 30 years from now and retire, right? So if I lose and gain 100 units a year, it's like to your point, not necessarily to other management companies, even though that happens, but it's to personal use. The economy's good. I don't need the supplemental income anymore. I'm moving in that unit I planned to 30 years ago. And then you get into the real estate success lately, right? So in the past 5 years, of the 1,000 units I've managed, almost 500 have turned over through real estate sales. Half. So I got to go keep that new owner engaged, make sure they want to rent their unit. Hopefully they do. Chase them and make sure we continue down the path. But the threats are not as much from each other as they are to things like retirement, real estate sales. The little guys, they're in business to make money. I get that. We call it a little bit of a race to the bottom in Panama City Beach because, everybody looks at Resort Collection as the big player in these buildings. Well, I'm at this commission. Well, they said their commission a little bit lower, and there are times I have to negotiate that. And they said they watch my rates, and they set their rates lower. So we call it a little bit of a race to the bottom, and we choose not to get into that competition too much because then we're all just going to go that same direction. So again, you got to service your homeowner, take care of them, and that will take care of the rest. Although we do have some threats that aren't being discussed like that. Like that retirement is a big one for us, based on when that condo was developed.
Let's talk about some of those threats. I mean, so we have the threats, like SWOT analysis threats to our industry, but I think we also are looking at, are there existential threats to the industry? Do you see, Leno, any existential threats to the industry?
Well, I think Ken did a great job in the session just prior on regulation. I think regulating our industry is one of the biggest threats that's in our face today. And I think he made the point that he was initially opposed to home rule going away and it being centralized up in Tallahassee. Yes, centralized governments don't do many things well, but it's also very tough to be an operator in multi-cities, multi-destinations, where every single time you cross a border from a city to a county or next county over, you've got to operate your business differently. The other thing is that, and again, Ken has been a champion in this region in particular for a number of years, is that the three things that really come to mind when you think about all the problems with our industry, with trash and parking and overcrowding in these units, those are not new problems. and they're not, and they're already on the books as nuisances that have controls to accommodate them through code enforcement. So when you allow a local government to come in and hear from a couple of very vocal minorities, and you're not involved, then you end up with rugs being pulled right out from underneath you. And so that to me is one of the biggest risks, is that our industry, in fact, I was on the phone with Tallahassee yesterday. It was Tourism Day in Tallahassee.
Yeah.
How many of you from Florida were in Tourism Day yesterday? How many of you are from Florida in this room? That's several. Guys, I highly recommend you get involved with the Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association, with Florida VRMA, with Visit Florida.
Are you still head of Visit Florida?
I'm the immediate past chair.
Got it.
And then chaired Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association in 2016. We're dealing with the exact same issues we're dealing with today. When any of our elected officials at the state level or the national level, when they walk in and they hear from lobbyists, those people are paid to tell them something that another industry or agent has given them a check to tell. When you guys are in the room and you're saying, this is how this particular thing is going to affect my business personally and me personally as a resident, you change minds. You change the entire mindset. Politicians are lazy, really. They care only about the next election and whoever's going to support them financially the most. But when they hear from you, you can actually affect change. I highly recommend whatever state you're in, get involved in local politics, even as on a task force or whatever. That to me is the biggest risk. Our industry is very misunderstood to this day. I mean, if you think about it, some of the oldest rental companies in the U.S. are still only 60 years old. Hotels have been around for hundreds of years, so they've kind of got that figured out. But our industry, not only is it fragmented, it's very misunderstood. And the problems that we all face together, should be controlled with local city ordinances that are already on the books today. So we got a lot more work to do in that regard.
Brian, existential threats, past regulations. Do you see anything coming down the pipeline that's a little concerning?
Yeah, well, regulations is a big one, and Micah hit on I think the other one, right, is what I was just talking about. We're in the public eye for the first time. And that's great, and that's scary at the same time, right? Because the industry's gone through tremendous growth over the last, really even 5 years. And as that continues to explode, right, we're in the public eye, there's people looking at it. We're starting to, the hotel industry, right? So let's look at leisure travel, like as a whole. Vacation rentals is still relatively small, but we pose a threat. This industry poses a threat, or starting to pose a threat to leisure travel as a whole, right? The hotel industry. And that's going to be on somebody's radar. It's probably, there's bigger dollars to be spent on out of the hotel world. There may be issues that we face and some competition that we face that are a result of that. So there's the traditional ones. You've got the economy, you've got regulation, but I think we're also going to be. I was just talking to somebody a little while ago, I think it was Ken, saying sometimes we're our own worst enemy, right? Not getting involved, not putting our best foot forward, just to represent the industry as a whole. Ben has talked about this in the past too, right? There's this professionalism is kind of coming and going right now. We're going through a period of increases in professionalism, but we've got a lot of new startups, and that poses a threat to that as well. So I think we just have to be. Our image, right, perception of the industry is going to be super important going forward.
I'm actually really glad you brought that up, because Ben has a session this afternoon that's kind of a deep dive into what we're talking about here and why it is so important. And looking at that professionalism, Micah, I mean, you thought it was so important, you built a university around it. So I know that you're pretty passionate about that we have to raise the bar as an industry across the board, or we're going to lose the whole thing. Tell me why you started Vacation Rental University and what your thought is behind that being a threat.
Yeah, I mean, that's my extra essential or whatever word you used. I'm just kidding. Leave it to the author to use a huge word a Marine wouldn't understand. So thank you. That was a good laugh. I built Vacation Rental University, which is literally a download of people like this who I consider some of the best operators in the industry. I interviewed them, done my own stuff, and put it out in a video format to teach mainly the new audience how to do this well, because I think our threat as an industry is one, you got brilliant about support and getting involved in especially the laws and those sort of things. You guys realize how much tax revenue is sitting in this room right now? A couple of phone calls changed some people's minds. I mean, when you control that, I just looked at our tax revenue. It's crazy. Millions of dollars are going right to these coffers, and we're sitting here like, oh, I don't know what to do. You know, no, you call somebody, you get involved, you tell them your opinion, you send an email every day, copy and paste it over and over and over again until you get an answer. Don't be scared of that. You are very, very powerful, even at 50 units. I mean, talk about the level of revenue you generate compared to the average population. You own that and go for it. So getting involved. But again, the education, you know, with new people getting in and even some older operators who maybe haven't changed their model yet to adopt new methods of rate management, distribution, avoiding some of the race to the bottom. I mean, we don't have to play chicken with each other. We can all have a high quality service, charge the right fee, charge the guest the right fee, and all make a great living and do well for our owners. So, you know, I created it to educate people because I think ignorance of the bar is so low. I mean, you have a fantastic cleaning company can come in and become a management company with a few pieces of paper and some software. I love that about our industry. It also terrifies me to no end because at the end of the day, there is such a huge amount of knowledge and experience that you have to actually operate at a high level and not hurt people. We're talking about people's life savings in some of these properties that we manage. I mean, that is like breathtaking to me that somebody would say, oh yeah, I spent this $1 million, it's the last $1 million I have and I have to retire here, don't screw it up. You know, what keeps you up more than that? So again, thanks for the question. The university's just to hopefully get around this threat that a whole bunch of people start operating the way I did, which is like, I'm just gonna figure it out. I mean,
That brings it back to that retirement. Panama PCB has a lot of this. People who bought a condo as their retirement plan and stuff like that. It's an asset management job for you guys, I'm sure. And I know that you and I have talked about technology in this industry and where that's headed too. So for threats for you, what are you seeing?
Well, I mean, technology is always a threat and an opportunity, right? If there was no internet, you know, internet allowed everybody to do what we do. So technology, we always have to get better at. We always have to watch it. We always have to be on top of it and be ahead of the curve. Because if we're not, our competitors are going to be. So technology, I look at on both sides of the fence, opportunity, and then you know, weather's obviously a threat too. As we learned the hard way last October of 2018, that can hurt your reputation. It can hurt your word of mouth. Our transient business is still not back to where it was. Because as I had a homeowner or a guest tell me a few months ago, we still want to let the smoke clear. And I'm like, well, the smoke's been clear for a long damn time. Come on back. But, you know, when people go away from your destination for 6-8 months, they may fall in love with that next destination. I know we experienced some of that and we're slowly climbing back. But those are all threats that we face. Everything they've mentioned is a threat as well. And we face it every day.
On the cost front, technology is one of those expenses that's changed quite a bit. I mean, you had software before, now you've got revenue management, now you've got pricing tools, and now you've got a service component with that. Like, what do you, I mean, I think beyond pricing is 1% of revenue, I mean, at the rack rate. Like, is technology a cost for you, Paul, that's really increasing, and are there others that are becoming?
It's very much a cost that's increasing. We want the next best thing, right? We always do. I want that. I need that. I need that. I need that. So we want it, and then it's got to talk to your property management system, which is another whole issue, because then they don't want to pay for the APIs to be written to all these neat bells and whistles that you want. So you got to pay for that, and then you got to support it, like you said. So that's a big cost for us. And then on the employee side, the labor side, you know, I've got to pay more to get more. I've got to spend the money to acquire good people, train good people, and keep good people. One example, we have a call center operation that we had at one of our resorts for all our company. Well, huge turnover, high abandon rate on the calls, low conversion. I have now, it took me 2 years, but we've moved our entire call center operation to Jamaica. Why? They're more reliable. They teach it in the schools down there, how to keep, you know, the accent and lose the dialect. It's my call conversion is increased, my abandons are down, I've got a stable work environment, I've got managers in Northwest Florida, and I've got hourly agents and supervisor in Jamaica. I used to bring them up here with the HTB program for 8-9 months at a time. Now I've got year-round stability with a call center in Jamaica. And it's not a bad place to visit right now, too. So if you want to come down and check it out, come on down.
Just to
Yeah,
piggyback,
technology
excuse me, on the technology side, I mean, that to me, that's the big, that is the big equalizer right now. And if your company isn't invested in a great technology platform, you really are missing the boat. Any good technology should not only cover its cost, it should add additional value to your systems and processes. One of the things that I've found over the years, and I've probably been through 5 or 6 different RFPs for property management systems that we were going to select, and ultimately, after spending weeks and weeks and weeks in rooms looking at all sorts of data and charts and presentations, you end up picking the best of the worst. I mean, there really is not an end-to-end perfect solution out there, and there's a lot of chaos in that market as they continue to evolve as well. And that's one of the things I'm most excited about with what I'm doing today with BHome, is that we're coming in as that added layer of perfection operationally, so that you basically take a property management system that's just a tool to get reservations in and out, some basic accounting functionality and some other things, and we're adding operational efficiency to that tech stack that allows your managers to do less pounding around on keys and more interfacing with guests and owners. To me, most of the property management systems that are out there, and we interface, I think, I saw Joseph in there, I think we're interfaced direct with over 40 different property management systems today. That's the easy part. The single biggest difference, most of those technology platforms weren't developed by operators, and so when you take a piece of technology and it's built by others and you're forced to change your business to around how that system works, it's never really the right recipe for complete success. So having a system that's built and the architecture that's built so that by an operator for an operator is actually the mindset you should take. But small companies to large companies can actually have a very level playing field today where they couldn't years ago.
At 320, just as a heads up, we're going to do a technology landscape with the third-party suppliers and the software companies. And then at 15, we're doing a property management software thing. BJ's here with Escapia, Ed's here from Barefoot, Matt from Track, Brett from Streamline. So we've got some of the bigger players here. It's what I get the most calls about this year, as opposed to probably about 6 months ago, it used to all be about Verbo, about distribution. So I wanted to hit on that really quickly. Brian, as far as marketing goes, what kind of percentage do you have revenue is coming from OTAs or a Verbo or something like that?
Yeah, so our goal is to have a third of our bookings annually come from repeat guests, a third from direct traffic, and a third from OTAs or third-party distribution. We're pretty close to that. This year we're seeing a little bit of a dip in repeat guests. We haven't exactly pinpointed what's causing that yet this year. But we've actually seen a little bit of a rise in our third-party distribution performance, which is some good and bad to that, right? Obviously, we want as much traffic, control over as much traffic as we can. But those are our goals. When it comes to, I know we're all sitting here thinking about Google, and we had a big session on Google earlier. The only thing that I know for sure about Google is that we don't know anything about Google yet, right? It's going to change, right? That's very true. Look at HomeAway, right? HomeAway is synonymous with the vacation rental industry, and they don't know our industry, right? We've learned that a couple years ago with off-platform bookings and Matchback, right? And now we're away from that, and we're going to go through the same thing with Google. And I wish I could tell you what that's going to look like, but I don't think any of us know. I think we know what it looks like now, and we're smart to be proactive on it and take advantage of it the best way we can. But it's probably going to be, we're going to be having a totally different conversation about this next year.
What do you think that the Google conversation is going to be bigger as we go forward?
I think it will get, it will be more important and more predominant, over some of the others, for better, for worse.
Micah, you've got a pretty, I would say, cutting-edge marketing effort right now. I mean, how are you looking at distribution versus direct bookings?
So I actually look at distribution. He mentioned a pie chart of how he looks at how his business comes in. I look at our distribution channel as its own separate little pie chart. And so I want to optimize around Vrbo, Airbnb, Booking.com, any of these channels, and diversify myself within those. So there was a time period where Booking.com crept up to over 20% of our bookings, and that terrified me because they're so expensive. And so we wanted to tweak around, well, why are our other channels not performing as well, and ask these questions and get a little bit more equality within that. Now, we're also, our whole separate one is what's our pay-per-click distribution, our SEO distribution, our repeat booking, our email bookings, those sort of things. And so we don't compare them as the same, we compare them as separate, and we optimize, again, looking internal, we optimize around, oh, if our email marketing's weak, then our emails stink, right? So let's do better emails so we can creep that up and cut away at pay-per-click, which is very expensive. And lest you are not aware, rate parity is a thing of the past, official. I mean, legally, you don't have to worry about rate parity across channels, so don't. If Booking.com is 15, 18% more, you have to mark your rates up. You will literally go out of business if you're not aware of this. So if you take nothing else from this, be free to invest in the channels. You have no other choice. I challenge you to try to be, all by yourself out there in the world, hoping everybody answers your emails and books. They're not going to. So take advantage of not having to abide by rate parity and mark up your rates. And we are the top of the food chain. We manage these units. We manage the owners. We have access to that. I don't care how great your technology is and how smart Google is, they will never manage that property owner relationship. So we have the power then to force them to compete for our business by changing the rates. If Booking.com realizes we're all marking our rates up 15 to 18% and it forces their business down, I guarantee you they will come back and say, oh, our commission's now 8%. Or we're not going to charge you anything. Please put your rates down so we can charge it to the guest. Or something's going to change. They will have to break. We are no longer, because there's so much competition in that space, you should invest in that the right way and force them to compete amongst themselves and realize you're the top of the food chain, control that relationship with the homeowner, manage the properties like you're supposed to. These people will take care of themselves. Google's probably going to be the best thing that happens to us in the next 10 years. We're all worried about Vrbo and Airbnb. These are nothing. These companies are nothing to Google. It wouldn't surprise me if Google has some trouble competing with them, and that's going to be a good thing, and they're going to be a little bit more on their toes, and they will serve us. It's not happening today. It will happen. They will come and serve us. We are literally in control of that. We just haven't realized. It's kind of like with our lawmakers. We just haven't realized how much power we have. We need to kind of wake up and say, shoot, I really can control this, and do it.
That's extremely well said. I've had a love-hate relationship with third-party distribution for years. I think over the last couple of years, I used to hover around 8 to 10% of my total revenue production was through third parties, about 8 to 10%. That's a very, very small number in today's world. As Wyndham got a little lazier and started looking for, sort of exit strategies for the brand, that crept up, and I think ultimately ended up in 25-30% range, which to me is it's low, but it's completely unnecessary. In the region here, good operators that we've competed with for years, they've had some that have gone completely away from third-party distribution. So you are in control of your own destiny from that perspective. And
I think buyer pulled completely.
Yeah, and these folks should be competing for your business. You own the listing, and that has significant value.
I could do this panel all day, every day. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you doing this. I'm probably going to reach out to you for some interviews for the next issue to close this up. But one thing, Paul, I'm going to leave this to you. Prediction. What do you think this next decade holds?
You look back and said it was the Wild West, and I think the next 10 years, well, first of all, 10 years, give me 2 years. Let me figure out 2 years, and I'll be real happy. 10, I think we're still a little bit in the Wild West. We do a phenomenal job of confusing homeowners and confusing guests. We are the best at how to confuse people anywhere, and I don't know what other industry does it as good as we do. We should all applaud ourselves for what we do. But we are the Wild West, and our guests look at us and turn their head like a dog, and they don't understand what the hell we're doing, and sometimes we don't either. And then the homeowners look at us and they say, well, I need the care, I need the cash, and you're going to give it to me. This guy's going to charge me 3 points less, and I know your business, and I can go on the internet and do it myself. But at the end of the day, we'll all be here 10 years from now if we take care of that homeowner and take care of that guest and take care of that employee. That's our three-legged stool. Yes, it's going to look different 10 years from now. Yes, we're all going to get there differently, but at the end of the day, we take care of those three things. Our biggest and best assets. We'll be sitting here on stage with you, Amy, 10 years from now.
That's why you're our closer.
No.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. We'll head into the next session right away.